If you crave a glimpse of true standards, study the faces in this room, Richard Harrison announced, raising a crystal tumbler. The violins hushed and laughter died as his words commanded attention. 200 of Manhattan's elite, bankers, senators, CEOs, and socialites, turned their eyes toward the man who claimed to own the city. The skyscraper they toasted wasn't merely steel and glass. It was a monument to his ambition, proof that he believed the skyline itself bent to his will. He basked in the admiration, savoring the weight of their gazes. At his side, his wife Elaine gave him a smile honed by years of public displays. "Always the showman," she whispered, squeezing his arm. Their son, Christopher, 29 and weary of theatrics, rolled his eyes. "Dad, does every toast need to be a coronation?" he murmured, earning a disapproving glance from his fiancée. Elaine's sequin gown sparkled, while Christopher's tie felt like a noose. Richard basked in the attention, oblivious to the mix of reverence and resentment in the room. The crowd played along, knowing his moods could make or break their fortunes. Then a small catastrophe cut through the performance. A tray piled with glasses slipped on slick marble. Crystal shattered like scattered diamonds, sparks of light dancing on the floor. Naomi Carter, a 25-year-old maid in a plain black uniform, dropped to her knees, frantically collecting shards with trembling fingers. Her hand shook so violently that blood pricked her fingertips. Invisible moments before, she was now exposed under the chandeliers. Elaine's lips curled. "Pathetic," she murmured. Laughter rippled. Christopher frowned. "It was an accident. Leave her alone," he whispered. Richard's gaze lingered, a flicker of recognition tightening his jaw. He chuckled darkly and raised his glass. "Don't look horrified," he said. "Perhaps we can make this interesting." Naomi froze as he pointed at her. "Ladies and gentlemen, watch closely. Tonight will be unforgettable." He strode into the center of the hall. "Dance this waltz, and I'll marry you to my son." Gasps, then laughter filled the space. The air vibrated with mockery and the sour scent of champagne. Some women covered their mouths, others leaned in. Men chuckled as humiliation became entertainment. Christopher stiffened. "Father, this is absurd," he warned. Richard waved him off. "Play the music," he barked. "Let's see if the help can outshine my wife."
Naomi's hands trembled, but her eyes hardened. The laughter washed over her. Then she set the tray aside and straightened her spine. "I accept," she said. The room fell silent. Richard blinked, then laughed loudly, rattling the glasses. He beckoned Elaine into the spectacle. Naomi met his gaze. "When I dance better than your wife," she replied, "you will honor your word. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and stay with us. What happens next will astonish you. To our loyal audience, thank you for your support. Comment your thoughts and tap like if you're enthralled. Stay tuned to witness how a single dance can topple an empire." Richard spread his arms dramatically, basking in the cruel spectacle he had conjured. "Come on, girl," he shouted, his words slicing through the whispers. The hall roared as the crowd waited to see humiliation. Naomi, lowering the tray, whispered loud enough, "I accept." The room went silent. The orchestra froze. Richard blinked, then laughed so loudly it rattled the champagne glasses. "Did you hear that?" he bellowed. "The maid thinks she can dance." Elaine stepped forward. "Richard, really, must we lower ourselves to this charade?" she hissed, but he waved her off. "Don't be modest, Elaine. You've won trophies at the Manhattan Ballroom Club. Let's put you against this." He gestured at Naomi. Naomi, 25, straightened and met his eyes. "When I dance better than your wife, you will keep your word, even if it was meant as a joke," she said. The crowd erupted, half in laughter, half in disbelief. Christopher stepped forward, uncomfortable. "Father, this has gone too far." "Silence," Richard snapped. She agreed. Now she will entertain us. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, But no one challenged the billionaire. Naomi stepped onto the polished dance floor. Golden light reflected across her face. Though her hands trembled, her chin lifted with dignity. Crystal chandeliers cast a kaleidoscope of light on polished marble, painting the scene in opulence and cruelty. Senators and socialites leaned forward, their jewels flashing, whispering bets on whether she would fall. The hum of their predictions felt like a current pressing against Naomi's back. It was a gamble, disguised as a dance. "Start the music," Richard ordered. The orchestra began a slow, elegant waltz. As the first notes filled the hall, whispers rippled across the room. "She'll trip in seconds. She's never stepped foot on a ballroom floor." And yet, standing before Manhattan's elite, Naomi closed her eyes. For the first time all evening, her lips curved in a faint smile, as though she knew a secret no one else could fathom. The music swelled. Naomi's first step was about to silence the world. The waltz floated through the hall, and Naomi moved. It was not the awkward shuffle expected. Her foot glided across the marble floor with such grace that the laughter stopped almost instantly. A subtle sway, a measured turn, the kind of precision that spoke of training. Richard's grin faltered. Elaine's smug expression froze. Christopher leaned forward. Whispers shot across the ballroom. "Did you see that turn? She moves like she's done this before. This isn't clumsy. This is art." Naomi spun again, her skirt flowing like liquid shadow beneath the chandeliers. Every step carried not just elegance, but emotion, pain, resilience, and something money couldn't buy. Christopher's fiancée clutched his arm. "She's breathtaking," she whispered, though envy trembled in her voice. Elaine, refusing to be outshone, stepped onto the floor with forced bravado, executing stiff poses. But next to Naomi, her polished routine looked hollow. Richard gripped his glass tighter, his knuckles white. This wasn't the humiliation he had promised. It was turning into something else entirely. Naomi's eyes opened, locking with his. In them was no fear, only fire. She twirled into a pirouette, landing perfectly with the orchestra's swell. Gasps filled the air, then applause, hesitant at first, then louder. "Magnificent! Impossible! Who is she?" For the first time in decades, the Harrison Ballroom wasn't laughing with Richard. They were in awe of the maid he mocked. Christopher whispered under his breath, unable to look away. "She's extraordinary." At that moment, Naomi's necklace slipped forward from underneath her uniform, catching the chandelier's light. Richard Harrison's face went pale. His glass shattered in his hand. The chain swung free as Naomi turned, and the lights caught it like a spotlight. A silver locket, small but unmistakable, glimmered at the hollow of her throat. Richard Harrison's jaw clenched, his breath caught. He stumbled backward, eyes fixed on the pendant. "No!" "It can't be," Elaine noticed. "Richard, what's wrong?" But he could not answer. His gaze was fixed on that locket, as though it had ripped open a vault he had spent decades trying to seal. Naomi, unaware of the chaos unraveling inside him, kept dancing. Each step carried dignity, but the locket now swung with her movements, an accusation in silver. A guest gasped. "That necklace looks antique," another whispered. "I've seen it before." Richard's mind jolted, but he forced himself to stand rigid, refusing to let his past spill out in front of the city's elite. The laughter died away, replaced with whispers and suspicion. Richard's hand trembled so violently he dropped his glass. It shattered across the marble, louder than Naomi's tray had. Christopher turned, shocked. "Dad, what is it? What do you see?" Richard's lips quivered. "That necklace," he whispered. "It belongs to my blood." Tonight, Richard's mind jerked back 15 years as the locket swung. The polished marble around him melted into memory. A smoky jazz club in Brooklyn, a song thick as honey, and a woman with eyes like embers. Her name was Maya Carter. He had sneaked away from boardrooms to listen to her velvet voice, laughed with her under flickering streetlights,
and for one tender night believed he could be more than ambition. He had pressed a silver locket into her palm and whispered, "For our daughter someday." Then fear of scandal devoured his courage. When Maya told him she was pregnant, he buried her letters and ignored her calls. He convinced himself that silence was protection while he built towers and forgot the way she said his name. Now, the locket he once clasped danced at his maid's throat. Elaine's grip tightened on his arm. "Richard, you're shaking," she whispered. He couldn't answer. Each spin Naomi took mirrored the woman he had abandoned. The crowd sensed something and leaned closer. Naomi slowed, letting the music fade. She stood tall, breathing not with exhaustion, but with steady resolve. Silence smothered the room. Then she spoke. "You mocked me as a servant," she said, eyes locked on Richard. "You laughed at me for stumbling, for carrying trays, for being invisible to you." A murmur rolled through the crowd. He shifted, but her gaze did not let him look away. "I am not invisible." She lifted the locket. "This belonged to my mother."
The woman you loved in secret, the woman you abandoned. Elaine's color drained. "What is this nonsense?" she demanded. Naomi's voice hardened. "It's not nonsense. It's blood. This necklace was a promise Richard Harrison made before I was born, a promise he broke when he walked away." The whispers turned to sharp inhales. Richard's throat tightened. "Naomi, don't," he choked, but she cut him off. "Don't you dare say my name as if you earned it. You left us. Tonight you mocked me before your empire, but what you mocked was your own daughter." Glasses halted midair. The orchestra sat stunned. Christopher's fiancé's hand slipped from his arm as he stared at Naomi. "Your father," he breathed, turning to Richard. "Then you're my sister." The room cracked. Some guests clutched pearls. Others whispered gleefully. A senator leaned close to his wife. "This family is finished." Elaine gripped a chair for balance. "Richard, tell me this isn't true," she begged. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Silence was answer enough. Naomi's eyes shone, but she did not flinch. "You humiliated me tonight, called me less than human," she said. "But you never told this room that the maid you mocked is your own flesh and blood." Christopher staggered forward, jaw shaking. "No, this can't be happening," he stammered. "I admired you. I defended you." He stopped, his voice cracking. Guests recoiled, some horrified, others thrilled. He loved her. He wanted to marry her. "Disgraceful," someone whispered. Naomi folded her arms across herself, bracing against the onslaught of stares, but her chin stayed lifted. Christopher's hands clenched. "You ruined us both," he said hoarsely, glaring at his father. "You lied to me, to her, to everyone. And now the world knows." The empire Richard had built was collapsing, not in boardrooms or markets, but right here. People who had cheered his wealth now stepped back as if contagious. Investors in the corners exchanged looks, calculating. Photographers and gossip columnists who had once begged for his smile now lifted phones to capture his ruin. The hall that had resonated with toasts to his success now reverberated with whispers of karma. His reputation disintegrated, utterly, publicly. He watched alliances shift. He saw allies become spectators, eyes gleaming with pity and schadenfreude. The weight of their stares pressed like lead on his chest, each whisper another crack spreading through the foundation of his empire. His mind scrambled for control, but the truth had already taken root, and there was no speech or check that could buy it back. Naomi's revelation cracked his world with every word. Richard wanted to explain, to patch over the void with excuses, but the vocabulary he had honed over decades failed him. He saw in Naomi the face of Maya, saw the life he had denied, and fear replaced his arrogance and certainty. "Because she's mine,"
he had whispered earlier, and the truth echoed around the chandeliers, impossible to contain. The ballroom dissolved into pandemonium. Voices rose in a storm of disbelief, disgust, and fascination. Some guests covered their mouths in shock. Others leaned into the scandal with hungry whispers. Elaine's face went ashen. She swayed, then crumpled, her jeweled clutch clattering to the floor. A chorus of gasps followed as two women rushed to catch her. On the far side of the room, Christopher tore off his bow tie and staggered toward the doors. "I won't be part of this circus," he spat, his voice shaking. "You've destroyed me, Father. You've destroyed us all." He shoved past the stunned crowd, leaving his fiancée in tears. Investors in crisp tuxedos huddled near the bar, their murmurs carrying across the marble floor. "This scandal will cost us millions," one whispered. "Pull the contracts first thing Monday. The Harrison name is finished." Richard stumbled forward, his once commanding presence crumbling. "Wait, listen to me," he shouted desperately, but no one listened. Not his son, not his wife, not the powerful allies who had clung to his every word. Naomi stood steady in the center of it all, her necklace glowing beneath the chandeliers. She had not raised her voice, had not lashed out. Yet the truth she revealed had done more damage than any weapon could.
Guests were already reaching for their phones, recording the collapse of a dynasty. "Billionaire exposed," a woman whispered gleefully. "This will be everywhere by morning." Richard's chest heaved as he turned back toward Naomi. "Why now? Why here?" he asked, his voice cracked with something he had never shown before. Fear. Naomi met his gaze, tears glistening. "You mocked me, Invisible," she said. "Tonight I made sure you saw me." Her words rang clear above the chaos. The empire Richard Harrison had spent a lifetime building began to crumble, not in boardrooms or markets, but in the judgmental eyes of Manhattan's elite. The ballroom was no longer a celebration. It was a battlefield of whispers, broken glass, and shattered pride. Richard staggered toward Naomi, his once booming voice reduced to a rasp. "Naomi, please, I never meant—" His hand trembled in the air, as if reaching for her, but she stepped back, her eyes wet but resolute. "You never meant," she replied softly, her voice cutting sharper than any shout. "You meant every choice you made when you left my mother alone. You meant every silence when you pretended we didn't exist. And tonight you meant every cruel word when you mocked me in front of your empire." He collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. The king had fallen. Naomi drew a breath, her shoulders straightening. "You taught me something tonight, Richard. Money builds towers, but it cannot buy dignity. Power fills rooms, but it cannot silence the truth. You thought I was invisible, but now the world sees me." The crowd stood stunned, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. Cameras flashed, phones recorded from every direction. Richard's ruin was being documented for eternity. Christopher's voice echoed from the doorway with fury. "You're no father to me, and you're no man of honor," he shouted.
Then he was gone, leaving silence. Naomi turned toward the exit, her heels clicking against the marble with defiance. Each step was a declaration. She would not be broken again. Behind her, Richard's hoarse whisper followed, weak. "My daughter, forgive me." But Naomi did not look back. She walked into the night air, the city lights gleaming ahead, her dignity intact, her truth unshakable. And in that ballroom, Richard Harrison's empire lay in ruins. Naomi inhaled deeply, straightening her spine as if shedding the weight of years of silence. She looked Richard in the eyes one last time. "Tonight, you taught me something," she said.
Money may raise monuments to vanity, but it can never buy integrity. Power may draw crowds, but it will never muffle the truth. You dismissed me as invisible, yet now every gaze in this hall sees me. The guests stood speechless, her words hanging like a verdict. Flashes erupted, phones recorded from every corner. The fall of an empire was being captured in high definition. At the doorway, Christopher's voice cut through the murmurs. "You're a stranger to me, and you always were," he declared before disappearing into the night. Naomi turned on her heel, her shoes echoing on marble. Each step spelled liberation. Richard's cracked whisper trailed behind her, fragile as dust. "Please." She walked past him without flinching, stepping into the cold air beneath the city's glow. Dignity wrapped around her like a cloak. Behind her, the opulent fortress crumbled in the minds of those who had revered it. The lesson was clear. Truth and honor eclipse arrogance and cruelty. If this story moved you, don't leave without showing support. Like this video and share it with others, because sometimes stories remind us that dignity and truth will always outshine arrogance and cruelty.